What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. I've been checking out the Forza Motorsport enhanced ray tracing mod showcased by Alex from Digital Foundry on a few of my GPUs, and I wanted to make a video about it. We're going to compare the RX 7900 XTX with an RTX 3080 Ti and also throw in a bit of RTX 4090 there as well because it was a bit interesting. So yeah, without further ado, let's dive straight into it. We're going to start with native 4K and push things to the limit. Here we go, guys. We have the 7900 XTX on the left and the RTX 3080 Ti on the right at native 4K with the enhanced ray tracing mod enabled. And as you can see, both of these GPUs actually look like they're about the same performance-wise, but this doesn't tell the whole story. Well, for starters, we actually got a VRAM warning on the 3080 Ti with only 12 gigabytes. And I will show you a bit later on how that actually becomes a problem. But we're also running ray tracing much higher than you can actually do. And that will, of course, use a bit more VRAM as well. As a matter of fact, if you look at the XTX's VRAM allocation is at 14.3 gigs and actual use at 11.4 gigs. But I believe we're borderline on the 3080 Ti. Now, another thing that stands out to me and is perhaps quite interesting is that neither GPU is being fully utilized. Now, at face value, these are signs of a CPU limit. And we are using a Ryzen 7800X3D, so very fast gaming CPU, but both GPUs are underutilized. The XTX is actually underutilized more than 3080 Ti. As you can see, 3080 Ti tends to be above 90% consistently, whereas the XTX is in the mid-80s. So if the CPU is a bottleneck, then theoretically our RTX 4090 should be running very similar FPS, right? Well, let's check that out and see how that compares. So I've gone ahead and replaced the 3080 Ti on the right with the RTX 4090, and we're running the same exact lap. And now if you see, well, the RTX 4090 is definitely faster. We're in the mid 60s to 70 FPS with much higher 1% lows, and it too is actually very underutilized. It's in the 70s of percent actually. So it's kind of interesting because if we were truly fully CPU bound with the XTX and the 3080 Ti, right, theoretically the 4090's FPS should be the same as well, but it's not. It's actually much faster. So this is actually very interesting. Now, I did a bit of research on this because I was genuinely curious, and I looked at Bang for Buck PC Gamers videos, a guy who usually runs very well-tuned machines, and he's got one of the fastest i9 14900Ks with an overclock RTX 4090. So let's take a quick look at that because I noticed the same, very similar behavior. So this is Bang for Buck's footage here, and he's actually running the game at 4K, but with DLSS set to quality. Now, if we look at his GPU utilization here, his is also around 78 to 80%. So his GPU is also being underutilized. Now, there are many scenarios where the X3D and 14900K will run very similar, but there's other games where the 14900K will have an edge because it has a lot more cores and it can boost higher as well. So I kind of use his videos as like a benchmark too, just to kind of double check myself sometimes, you know, and this is a pretty good one too, because he's getting definitely a bit higher FPS, but he's also using DLSS as well, but it's the same behavior. The GPU is not being fully utilized. If we go back and remove the mod though, we have the XTX on the left and 4090 on the right. Now the XTX is actually at 100%. The 4090 still dips below 95%. But now we have the 4090 is about 45% faster than the XTX. 1% lows are about the same. But yeah, so enabling that ray tracing enhanced mod does add more of a CPU load, it seems. Next, we're going to go to Maple Valley, and we're going to use FSR quality and DLSS quality, and we're going to pit the XTX against the 3080 Ti. And this one was actually a bit interesting. This will be a race in Maple Valley, and as you can see, we got a video memory VRAM over budget warning for the 3080 Ti. This time we're going to be using DLSS quality and FSR quality with the enhanced mod. This time our 12GB VRAM budget is going to actually catch up to us because we're going to get a warning that, a pop-up if you will, that is going to tell us that we ran out of VRAM. But we're going to ignore it and see how it compares to the XTX anyway. The 7900 XTX is a bit ahead right now, especially on the 1% lows. It's almost double what the 3080 Ti is. As far as FPS, they're still rather close, although the XTX definitely has the lead. However, we still have both GPUs not fully utilized. They're both at around 80 to 89% utilization. And yeah, look at that. The 3080 Ti has now caught up on the 1% lows. See, I think what happens is when there's a lot of drive avatars, the 3080 Ti is right at that border where it runs out of VRAM, and that's why we got that message, because you can feel it sometimes. Now, here's the other thing that's very interesting. If you don't mod the ray tracing and run it at ultra, even if you play at 4K native with the 3080 Ti, you don't actually get that pop-up while you're playing the game. You do get a warning in the menu, but other than that, it actually runs fine. Speaking of which, we are going to test that right now. We're going to test the 3080 Ti against the XTX with the ultra ray tracing, no mod. So let's check that out and see if we can max both of these GPUs. Interesting though that as of right now, they seem very comparable. 1% lows are identical, and the XTX is only ahead by 5 FPS. Alright guys, so now I've disabled the mod and we're running with ray tracing on ultra. Both GPUs are now fully utilized at 100%. Now we have the XTX is ahead by around 9 FPS or so. 1% lows, the XTX is noticeably ahead by 15 FPS. That's actually pretty good. 10 to 15 FPS. And yeah, now we have no VRAM issues with the 3080 Ti. But like I said again, when you're in the menu and adjusting settings, it does say that you're close to running out of VRAM budget. I forget exactly what the message says, but you never get it while you're actually playing in the game. So clearly, increasing ray tracing, to no one's surprise, increases VRAM consumption, obviously. But yeah, this is what the XTX versus 3080 Ti looks like without any modifications. And they're actually quite comparable, believe it or not. The XTX is ahead, but again, not by all that much. It's 15% faster on averages and 32% faster on 1% lows over the 3080 Ti. I do have one more scenario that I wanted to show you guys. We're going to take a look at Nürburgring with the mod at 1440p. For this one, we're just going to run 1440p, no FSR or DLSS with a ray tracing mod. And look at that, guys. They're practically identical. And there's a good reason for that. We appear to be actually CPU bound. If we look at our GPU utilization on the XTX, we're at around 80%. On the 3080 Ti, it's a little bit higher at around 85%. And I think that's because clearly the XTX is a bit faster than the 3080 Ti with ray tracing. If we disable ray tracing, then the XTX would be quite a bit faster than the 3080 Ti. That kind of makes sense. But I'm actually curious about how the RTX 4090 would compare with the XTX. Interesting, because it's definitely going to be CPU bound at 1440p. Well, let's take a look at that as well, and then I guess we can wrap up this video, which was actually very interesting because this is another game where I actually ran out of VRAM with the 3080 Ti. Even though it was at 4K with modifications, it still happened. But anyway, let's take a look at how the 4090 now compares with the XTX at 1440p. Because other than that, I mean, look at the averages, right? They're practically identical. The 1% lows are literally identical between both of them. Okay, so Now we have the 4090 on the right, and we're running both at 1440p with a ray tracing mod. And this throws my CPU bottleneck right out the window, because if we truly were CPU bound, well, the 4090 would have the same FPS as the XTX and the 3080 Ti, but it doesn't. It's actually much faster. And it too isn't being fully utilized, by the way. Neither is the XTX, but this is very interesting. I mean, in this particular scenario, for averages, the 4090 is like 40% faster, and on the 1% lows, over 50% faster than the XTX actually. So this is very interesting. I mean, I don't know, this ray tracing mod, I mean, all GPUs don't get fully utilized, like in all the comparisons I showed. Even the 3080 Ti, which is technically the weakest of the three, it too isn't fully utilized with this mod, which is very interesting, and I'm not sure why that is. I don't know if it's maybe just inefficient code, because clearly the game wasn't meant to run with these settings, right? Even though they are interesting to take a look at. I mean, look at the denoising on the car. You do get some of those with this mod, but still interesting nonetheless. That's why I wanted to check it out. And I knew that in the past, the 7900 XTX was actually very comparable to the 3080 Ti based off my own testing, that I wanted to take a look at it here as well, but also throw the 4090 for you guys. I do like making these videos because I find modding things and looking at ray tracing to be very interesting, and to show the capabilities of the 7900 XTX, which, hey, 3080 Ti is no slouch. That was the flagship last gen, and that's about a 4070 Super level of ray tracing. That's actually very good for the 7900 XTX, you know, which matches and beats sometimes the 4080 Super. So to have ray tracing on the level of a 3080 Ti 4070 Super, I think that's actually pretty good. But I don't know, what do you guys think? Leave a comment down below and let me know. Give the video a like if you liked it, or dislike it if you didn't, and subscribe if you want. Don't subscribe, it's up to you, but I appreciate you watching either way, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.